I have a methodology, but it's not cookie cutter where it doesn't fit every single client that I see. But the generalness of how we start is a really deep self-discovery.
Welcome to the No Excuse Pro podcast, your weekly dose of motivation and actionable advice. If you're a realtor, financial planner, business owner, or anyone who's tired of making excuses and ready to take your success to the next level, you've come to the right place. Join your host, Kevin Brierton, each week as he chats with industry leaders who are going beyond the excuses to achieve their goals. So no excuses accepted. Let's get started.
Hey, Jeanette, thanks so much for joining me on the No Excuse Pro podcast. We are here to empower people and remove the excuses out of their daily lives and really help them accomplish their dreams. So thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing today?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Kevin. It's a pleasure. I know we've known each other for a long time, so this will be fun.
I know, dating back almost over 10 years plus now.
Crazy.
So thank you for all your trust over the years. And I know you do a great job in your profession. Can you share a little bit about your journey and how led you to do what you do now?
Yeah, absolutely. I won't go into too much detail, but I started out in banking, so I have a little bit of a passion and knowledge for, what you've done along your career as well. From there, I spent 15 years, and then I went into the startup world. But what I did in the banking side that I absolutely loved was a lot of strategy and technology. But I found the true love of people, building teams, doing a lot of process improvement. But what I also found then is what I was doing in that time was um, making more money for the banks, right? And not always embellishing and making the lives of the people better. So when I went into the startup in the healthcare space and started doing some strategy and building, that's where, again, I got to develop a lot of the love I have of coaching and building teams, but then the individuals as well, which has led me to now, many years later. So fractionally, I work for a startup just to keep my hand in it, but I'm a life coach and I do some executive and leadership coaching as well.
Very cool. Very cool. So what do you think is the one thing that makes a difference in your success?
The one thing that's really tough. I think experience and wisdom has a ton to do with it. I think, there's a couple times where people say, oh gosh, you have the fear of losing. I feel like one thing over the years is I've always felt like if you're going to lose and everybody's going to, you have to look at that as a learning opportunity and how you won't do it again.
Yeah.
So people say, well, whatever you do right now seems so perfect, or you give the best advice. And I think, well, yeah, but I didn't do that 10 years ago, didn't do that 20 years ago. Just a learning process and journey along the way. So I think that's huge for contributing to my success, and then to be able to share that with others.
So tell me just a little bit more about that.
In what
Anything
in which
else? Any
sense?
other experiences where maybe somebody like you've seen, like where the client maybe was the hero in a scenario that goes along those lines, or somebody you helped but that they became the hero in the story?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think, I didn't start out coaching executives. I started out coaching individuals, and not even as a coach, but a lot of that's innate. When you go back and you get your certification and learn all the tools and techniques and become certified in assessments, that's great, but that innateness still, I think, is huge. What I've seen over the years from coaching different types of people and mentoring and coaching is very different. I've done both. I feel like the biggest thing, and it goes along with that fear of failure, is the limiting beliefs that we have that keep us from moving full force into whatever we want to do. And a lot of times, if you don't have that renewing of your mind or being able to clear your mind to do that, you're not even able to see exactly what you want to be able to do or where your passion lies. So it's that limited self, belief. So I think that ties in with the fear, but there's a lot packaged into what I just said. So
What's the easiest way to understand, like you have um fear, but the awareness? You talked about
Mhm.
awareness. So tell me a little bit more about how you have more awareness around maybe your fears or opportunities. self-talk. Tell me a little bit more how you help people have more awareness.
Yeah, that's also hugely, hugely loaded. I have a proprietary methodology that I use. I've been
Don't
trained in
have
a
to
couple
tell me
different.
what you want to tell me.
Yeah, no, it's not that I wouldn't share that, but here's what I tell clients. If a client were to ask me, and a lot of times they say, exactly what are we going to do? I have a methodology, but it's not cookie cutter where it doesn't fit every single client that I see. But the generalness of how we start is a really deep self-discovery. So it's me discovering you, but then I coach and guide you through a self-discovery and awareness. There's an interesting thing in between where a life coach doesn't go backwards. That's a therapist's job, but a life coach, starts here, hold you accountable to move forward. That doesn't mean we don't talk about how we've been informed along the way or the things that have impacted us in the past. That definitely is part of it. But from there, I mean, that's the biggest piece is the self-discovery. And then the really hard work is the self-assessment and what do we do with that? So that's where all the different tools and techniques and, as I discover people's appetites for how they want to learn. Some people like to talk like this and then take it away and digest it and do homework. Other people don't want to do any homework because they're too busy. And we do that work together on the phone. And then once you realize, do you have the self-limiting beliefs, which is, I would say 75% of the time what I find, what are they? How do you change your mindset? And it can be as simple as a habit. It can be, I do a ton of subconscious mind work. The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy is one of my favorite books. It's old, but it's tried and true, but
Tell me that
it's
name again one more
resetting.
time.
It's called Power of Your Subconscious Mind. I should have brought it off my bookshelf.
Excellent.
It's that another great thing that always comes to mind. I've got this mentor of mine that's an older gentleman, and he has this phrase, and it was coined by Henry Ford, but the phrase is, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So it's a lot of just retraining, retriggering, getting rid of bad habits or bad thoughts or self-limiting beliefs.
So
And then
we talk to a lot of professionals, whether it's realtors, financial advisors, or business owners, and it's so common to hear, "Oh, we can't do that," so I like to ask, well, I know we can't, but what if we could? What would it look like if we could do that? Like, so just like hear them saying, okay, I understand you can't, but if you could, what would it look like? And that phrase is really opened up. And the funniest thing is when I say that, it's like, oh, well, blah, 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 and everything comes spilling out. You're like, okay, well, how do we go to like Disneyland and pretend anything's possible? And what would it look like? I
yeah,
was challenged by a coach of mine that way over the years and last week as well. And it just is such an interesting concept going, okay, well, I know we're stuck in a situation right now.
Mhm.
And I know that I'm telling myself I can't do it, but stop. And the best thing to do is just take a piece of paper and get away from technology and get away and just say, okay, well, what would it look like if we could do this? So
Right.
I just wanted to share that with you. And I think that's right along the lines. I think it's a huge problem people have is they don't even believe they can do it. And if they believe that it's possible, then maybe they don't have the faith to keep pushing forward. Think and Grow Rich talks about one of the steps is having faith. So you can
Yeah.
sit here and, write down how much money you want to make. You can have a clear plan. You can do a lot of the steps. You can do the affirmations. But if you don't have faith that you could do it, is a huge roadblock, and it goes right along the lines of self-limiting belief.
Yeah. And you know what, Kevin, I mean, you've always struck me as that since the first time I remember I was in Cleveland, 3 cities ago, talking to you on the phone, and you've had that, which is why I've admired and really worked with you for so long. Um, but one of the things I always think about is, and I hear this all the time, is that there's also who you surround yourself by or with, because you can have individuals that even if you start to have that faith, whether it's a boss or a spouse or a parent that's grown older and you've adapted to what expectations they've had of you, that's a big piece of it is, where did it come from and how do we get past it? And you can get past it with grace and love. It's just the how. And you can't do it with your mentor, and you can't do it with your boss, you can't do it with your spouse. And that's why my role has been so critically, you know, people have said you've changed my life. That gives me goosebumps when I hear that I can do that, because it's somebody that's holding you accountable to, like you said, you've got the plan, you might have a little bit of faith, you know what to do, but then having somebody there holding your hand, holding you accountable, making sure you're actually doing it, along with some of the tools and techniques, I think is most valuable.
So Jeanette, what's the biggest challenge you have, or what's the biggest challenge your customers face today? And how are you helping them specifically solve that challenge?
It's a lot of different things. I'm finding this niche of there's a huge amount of layoffs, in many different big positions,
Mhm.
people that are climbing the ladder and one below C-suite level that never expected to lose their job. They've lost their job. Um, so I think that is tough right now. I also see that people are trying to redefine and figure out, like, gosh, if this is my, severance package and I've got a year, let me really figure out what I want to do. If I'm in the last third or last quarter of my, game in my career, what's it look like after that? I'm also finding not as high of a percentage, but I'm finding these individuals that, a lot of men, more than women. Women all have these plans of, like, when I retire, here's what I'm going to do. Men have them, but they're shorter. But I'm also finding that they're losing a little bit of their identity. Not to say that women couldn't either, but men more so, especially if they're the breadwinners or the ones that, had the bigger career. They lose their identity. You can have all the money in the world, but to not have your identity or that internal piece of what your purpose is, another thing that I'm finding out.
Do you find that, like, we all work so hard to work, and then retire at some point, that I got listening to Tim Ferriss, which obviously is one of the big podcasters ever, but I read his 4-hour work week when I was in a situation back in 2014 where I kind of ran myself in the ground, did really well at a big bank, had a lot of a lot of praises and all this stuff, and then but I was just not feeling good, and finally I started thinking about what if this could look different.
Right.
It led me down this path. But what I looked at back then was, okay, I'm healthy now. I need to go enjoy life now, but also do really well in life. So the no excuse mentality and ethos really goes to the work situation, your family situation, being a parent, and also your life and yourself and taking care of yourself. And I think that's something that's overlooked, and something that I want people to hear with no excuse. When you hear no excuse, sometimes it's kind of rough around the edges, and it's like, take charge, just do whatever you need to do. It is that way, but it's also about having no excuses around your life and your health. And because if you have a great job and you do really well financially, professionally, but you don't take care of your health, you don't
Right.
take care of your family, don't take care of your kids, and also you don't take care of yourself, what's it all for? Like, what's the point of all of it?
Right. It's interesting you should say that. And I did not intend to show this, but I got this yesterday. Can you see that?
Yeah, just do it.
What's
Yes.
everybody think of when you hear that? They think of what?
I think of Nike, but I also think of the speech by the football coach.
Yeah. Well, so that's what everybody says. This was a message and a sticker that I got from church yesterday. And
Very
what it
cool.
was around is the power of connection and not making, not procrastinating, but not going forward because of fear or the self-limiting factors. But the other powerful thing about that is we were designed to be connected to other humans. So as we can pull and garner wisdom and, support from all the people that we need in our lives at different stages of our lives, then it just makes us better.
It
So,
gives me chills because, personally going through from, once COVID hit, and then one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast is to connect with people intentionally, but it's about work, but not really about work. It's we could help
right,
more people, and the connection's huge. So COVID hit 2020, and it was, we got really busy in the mortgage industry, which is great, but it was really a kind of a blessing and a curse because we became very isolated. You're super busy. You're super isolated because everything went remote. And even now, I have an office, but everybody else works at home. And so the isolation, mental health around isolation is definitely an issue. I was actually at church on Sunday as well, and they were talking about community and how important it is. And they talk about the body, the church is really the body of everybody that's part of it. And I've been leaning in because I need community around me, and it can't be just about work, which I love mortgage. I love doing the mortgage business. I love helping people be more successful. I love helping financial advisors and business owners and realtors.
But it's
But it
bigger than
also
that.
has to become a community, right? About who am I, and like getting
Right.
deep about, sometimes you have these conversations and it's all about, oh, what did you do today? How's work going? Oh, what did you see the game? How's the weather? A lot of kind of like surface level stuff. But
Right.
once you kind of get past that and you get to the deeper stuff, that's where the meat of it is. And I think the challenge, and I don't know, I love your input on this. I feel like a lot of people don't get into like real relationship and real community, whether it's a church or just your community. I think there's an opportunity to help people there. Like, what would you say to that, or what's your thoughts around how to lean into a community and get a little deeper with the people around you?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. So, you mentioned COVID. I've got two girls. One of them is, almost halfway through high school. So the way she was affected during that is, I think, the same as a lot of people were. Mental health plays a huge factor in the isolation at that age of development, um, along with a lot of people. But when I think about the question that you asked, it's not far from that age group. I think adults suffer from the same things of the closer you get, the more vulnerable and exposed some people feel. So if you don't have that, if you don't build that network or that sense or find your people that we're going to have your back no matter what, or have the same belief system no matter what that belief system is, it's hard for people to be vulnerable, I think. And that's the only way that we grow. It's the only way I think that we can help and empower each other. But another thing that I think of is the social media, and here we are in a podcast, which is amazing. But like some of the social media influence, like somebody said something about, yeah, I don't really go on Facebook that much anymore. And I'm like, no, it's a great tool. I haven't been on it a lot either. And a ton of times when you go on, somebody said, oh, it's like fake news. I'm like, it kind of is in a way. It's like nobody's going to post. I had a really, really crappy day today, and my kid left the door like this on their phone and didn't say goodbye. And then I got on a call and something at work didn't happen right. Like nobody puts that on Facebook. But
Yeah.
if can get in a group, or when we have small groups, I think of, you mentioned the community or at church or leaning in, like think if you can find one or two small groups and then keep expanding it, maybe that's a way. I'm still sort of discovering that as well. And I think that our needs over time change too. So
Yeah.
finding like-minded, and I don't mean like-minded in spirituality or things like that, but like-minded in like who's in your space right now, who has kids your ages, who's in sports, who's not, who's, into gardening or whatever it may be. So common interests and aligned values, I think is huge to find. And it's not easy.
Curious, I want to go. We have a few minutes left. I want to keep this
Sure.
in drive time.
Yeah.
So I want to know, like, what are two resources that make you think, man, if it weren't for these two things, I wouldn't be here today?
It's so funny because I wondered if that would be a question you would ask. Um, for me, it's number one is God. Like that's just number one. Or whatever, people's belief systems are. That's mine. That's hugely
Me
powerful.
too.
I also there's I was the last of five. My brother's 21 years older than me. My sister's 12, this young sister closest in age to me is 12 years older. So I had this magnificent, just really by sheer luck, that I had these two parents that got to learn a lot before they had me. So again, by luck, but they designed me, God designed me. They, kind of cultivated the fiercely independent. I had them as parents, but they gone through all the things. They were kind of tired. So I got to do
Yeah.
my own thing and
Yeah.
explore, which was fun. But then I also had these sets of like a couple of my siblings are friends, but the oldest two are more like parents. So, I've gotten this really neat way of being shown independence and not being, go do this and try it. If you fail, it's okay. There's a great support. So I don't think if I I had that, growing up too, you think, and I don't mean growing up young, I mean growing up like 20s, 30s, you think, gosh, this was really hard, or gosh, my dad didn't always do this perfect, and when you start to hear other people's stories, sense of community you mentioned, listen, really listen, because anything that you think you had that was bad, there's somebody else that's had it and probably even worse. So it gives you great just perspective on, I tell this to my girls all the time and even clients, like, oh, you think somebody's not nice or they're rude or they're mean? Like, hurt people don't always know how to be like you and I might know how to be if you have a different upbringing.
So my mind goes to, being a dad of two, and a lot of interactions are with kids. So I relate a lot of stuff back to there. One
Yes.
day we were playing ping pong in the backyard, and my son was like super frustrated, and it was like he was taken out like on the game, and I just like there was something going on,
Uh-huh.
and so I was like, okay, he's not just frustrated with the game, like what's going on? And he like spilled out, something happened at school, and it just, and I think sometimes, whether it's somebody that cuts you off or a coworker or a client, we have to really slow down and, say, hey, what can I help you with? I know you need some space right now, or if there's something, the friend that needs you more, then I think being in tune to help people is
Yep.
also something that we need to have no excuse around,
Huge.
because just because we want people to be there for us and hear us out, everybody loves to talk about their own stuff going on, but that's why we need to be there to help people talk to us about their stuff
Yeah.
and just stop talking, right?
Exactly. I was just going to say you just led this in perfectly. Is I've coached a few people and it's not an experiment, but I've asked them to do this, and I do this with my girls. I've done this with coworkers. I've done this with clients. I write it down. I write them sometimes a written letter, which is like, what, my girls are like, well, you're doing what? You're not going to type it. But I mean, it's powerful because a lot of times when you are struggling with something, just like the self-limiting beliefs, you aren't listening. You're not open or even able to receive the message. So
Yeah.
when you say it to me on a screen and you say, this is what I recommend for you, or what I think would be amazing for you, they're not hearing it. Writing it down that they can pull it open and maybe read it 2 or 3 times over a course of weeks.
So I'll share this with you.
Really
So
powerful.
we did a small group mastermind working on some stuff that we do, and it was really cool. So our leader, Carl White, in there, he's a coach around the mortgage industry, and he has a big book. So he literally brought he calls it a book of promises, and it's this like leather bound, really cool looking book with a feather pen thing. And he's
Mhm.
like, okay, here's your promise. Here's what you're going to write down. And so it's funny you say that, because I know it was a really cool thing, because it was almost like, you're committing to something without like signing a contract or something like that. But it was just a cool like way to do it that gave you more of a ritual of doing it, and it felt more real. So
Right.
it's funny that you say that, because that's something we did, and it's whether it's you're on your own in your own journal and putting it up. Journals are tough though, because you write something down and then turn the page and then turn the page and then turn, all of a sudden it's like 50
That's
pages
hard.
back. You're like, huh.
What? And then I got to read all that.
Yeah, right. So I
Right,
think
right.
sometimes it's like whatever that is, write it
Yeah.
down and set it aside. But I do love that idea. And we just went through that. So it's a interesting process you take right now. We're,
Remember
in,
this?
oh, there you go. There you go. Yeah, that's awesome.
So I loved what you had in the back, but it also, it was printed, but handwritten, like with
Yeah.
thought. Everything that
Yeah.
you've done is, and this
That's
was a long
funny.
time ago, a
Yeah.
long time ago. I don't know why I had that in here, but it made me think of it. So we were writing or talking about writing.
That's very cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're big on trying to, do different things. Sometimes it's handwritten notes, sometimes it's, birthday cards, and sometimes it's a birthday or a little gift. Something unfortunately I just had one of my clients, their parents passed away, and they were, it was all good, but really great clients. So we're gonna send a little, card and gift, and just something to think about, thinking about that time, and leaning into it is really what it's about. I think being a no excuse pro is leaning into the relationship, whether you're coaching, whether you're helping people plan on their finances, whether you're CPA, business owner. So with the last minute or so we have here, what do you want on your resume in the next 2 years, Jeanette?
Great question. Another great question. I am leaning in again the last third of my career. So I've always fractionally, well, not fractionally, a lot of times I had full-time positions as well. So I keep getting not sucked in, but I'm keep getting to these startup worlds, which I love, and they're highly exciting and invigorating. While I'm doing that fractionally right now, I'm building my coaching. So I'm building it more and more. I've always only been able to have, a handful of clients at one time, but in the last, 18 months, that's where I'm really focusing on. I'm trying to build out the content from a social media aspect while still keeping it authentic, which is hard.
Very
And
good.
when you try to employ people to do that for you, they want to do, these canned messages and fill in the first name and the company. And I'm like, no, that's not me. So I want to, grow that business, but grow it with the right clients. I also am at the point where it has to be somebody that's willing to receive, and I will know that within 10 minutes of talking to somebody if I'll even accept the client. Not if they need help, I'm going to help anybody, but that's also how I gauge if I can help them. So I would never
Yes,
want
we do the
to
same thing. We do what's called a high trust interview or discovery call.
Yep.
And it's really like, tell me about you. Tell me
Are
what's
we a
going on.
fit?
Let me answer questions. Let me figure this out. Like we believe in not just jumping into application, but it's like same idea. Any professional, I think that's really important. And like,
For
sure, I
sure.
can help you because if you're everything to everybody, then you're really not
Right.
nothing special. So you want to have your base of people you help and kind of some people you don't help, which is
Yep.
okay. Maybe they're better suited somewhere else. And so I
Even
think
if
that's
they say,
important.
I'll pay you, Kevin, or
Exactly.
I'll pay you, Jeanette. And it's like, it doesn't matter if I don't sense that you're going to let me help you or you're not ready for me yet. I'm not going to let you waste your money.
Yeah. Well, and that's awesome because I feel like there's places out there that just take money and then
For sure.
they just like in our world, like put somebody into a house and they're not happy with like that doesn't solve anything for anybody. Let's think through it, make sure it's the right situation, and then let's go.
Mhm.
So I think this has been awesome. I'm super
Oh,
excited to
yeah.
go back and actually listen to this.
Me too.
And I took a few notes. I want to know, we'll follow up on your journey and
Yeah,
see. I want to
absolutely.
continue to hear you building out your business and the challenges. So I love these conversations. Look forward to connecting again soon. Super excited for you to build this thing. You have the experience, knowledge, and everything you're doing is great. And I always enjoy our conversations. So thank you so much for being on. Really appreciate you. And last, I should have had this in the beginning. How would people reach out to you if they wanted
Um,
more information on coaching?
yeah, absolutely. Best way is email, and it's Jeanette, JeAnnette, at Jeanette Cofer, Cofer.com. That's also my website. So,
Awesome. So I'm
and
assuming if
thank
you
you,
guys have
Kevin.
any questions on coaching, jump on there. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for your time. You have an
Sure.
awesome day. Hey, everybody, thanks so much for watching the No Excuse Pro podcast. We're here to help you empower you, get over your excuses, and take on your dreams without the excuses. Thanks so much for watching.
Bye, Kevin. Thanks.
And there you have it, folks. Another enlightening episode of the No Excuse Pro podcast is in the books. A heartfelt thank you to today's guests for sharing their wisdom and to you, our valued listeners, for spending your time with us. If you're ready to ditch the excuses and level up, make sure to subscribe and find all our episodes at noexcusepropodcast.com. Don't forget, the only thing standing between you and your goals is the story you tell yourself. So no excuses accepted here. Take action and make it happen.